I signed up for the Galactic Cultural Exchange, mostly because I was bored. After 2 tours on Mars and a stint chasing pirates around the rings of Saturn, civilian life felt like a padded cell with better food. I figured a semester on Station Amarantha, the so-called jewel of the neutral expanse, would shake the dust off. I didn't expect a roommate who made shadows feel crowded. She didn't speak when I arrived. Just nodded once and turned away. Cloaked, hood up, face invisible, she moved like vapor. I'd heard of shy species. Some needed translation chips, others had complex scent-based greetings, but she didn't even acknowledge the welcome packet. The only thing she interacted with was a matte black cube, which she kept locked in her footlocker. It pulsed once every few minutes like a dying heartbeat. We didn't share meals. She emerged only when I left. I caught glimpses of her when I returned earlier than expected, a silhouette near the vent, pale hands tucked under long sleeves. Once I heard her humming. It stopped the second I stepped through the door. Everyone I asked gave the same answer: she's just like that. Nobody knew her species. Her name wasn't even in the directory, just a designation code that sounded more like a warhead than a person. I tried calling her that once. Her reaction was immediate. She flinched, hissed like static feedback, and walked out. I didn't try again. The station was a floating diplomatic petri dish, packed with ambassadors, mercenaries, students, and parasites in equal measure. Most aliens were curious about humans. Our biology, our history, our habit of picking fights we shouldn't win and surviving anyway. I gave a lecture once on Terran conflict evolution. Got applause. Got drinks. Got called the Chaos Primate by a glowing cloud being that smelled like lightning. But every time I returned to the room, the silence felt heavier. It wasn't fear. I didn't feel threatened. It was like she was bracing for something, every moment, all the time. The first Real crack appeared during a blackout. Power blips were rare, but not impossible. I came back early and found her standing in the middle of the room, her cloak off. Her skin wasn't skin, it was light. Not glowing, not bioluminescent. She was light, contained in shape. Her back was to me, but I saw the faint web of patterns, stars, maybe, or something older. She turned slowly. Her face shimmered with shifting patterns, not solid features. But her eyes, those were real. And terrified. She covered herself instantly, vanished behind her curtain, and didn't speak for days. I didn't tell anyone. Instead, I started observing. She reacted to music, especially classical earth tones. Her breathing synced with it. She froze around high-frequency vibrations but relaxed near warmth. Her cube responded to electromagnetic fields, vibrating softly when my tablet was near. I left it beside her once. She returned it without a word, but it was different. My background apps were gone. Storage was reorganized. Every file name translated into an unknown language. When I tried to reverse it, the code unraveled like it had never been there. I asked her why she was here. She stared at me for a full minute before responding, because I am not allowed to exist anywhere else. I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. The next week, I found her standing in front of a view screen, watching Earth segment. Her cloak slipped slightly, revealing a line of glowing script down her arm. It shimmered faintly, then vanished when she noticed me. "I've seen that before," I said, pointing. "In ancient orbital ruins around Ceres." She turned slowly. "Your people remember fragments." I sat beside her. "Fragments of what?" She didn't answer. The cube pulsed once, brighter than before. She reached for it, hesitated, and whispered something. The screen flickered. My implants buzzed. For a split second, I saw not the station, but a field of stars arranged in a pattern that made my vision blur. I ran diagnostics. Nothing was wrong. Nothing recorded. But I remembered it, perfectly. I stopped asking questions publicly. Instead, I started digging. Her species didn't exist in council records. Not in restricted archives, not in old war logs, not even in unconfirmed xenocide lists. It was as if she came from nowhere. Except she didn't. I found matching references in pre-expansion Earth myth. Cultures that never met describing beings of living starlight who walked among the stars. Most dismissed them as metaphor. I wasn't so sure. Then came the incident with the pipe. We were walking through a lower deck corridor when a maintenance conduit gave out. Debris fell. I turned, expecting to dodge. She moved first. She didn't run. She didn't flinch. She caught the debris. Not with hands. With a field of light that flared from her body like wings made of pure force. Everything froze midair. Then it dropped safely, clattering inches from my feet. I stared at her. That's not cloaking tech. She blinked, almost annoyed. No. What is it? She hesitated. Inheritance. The word felt heavy, like it belonged in a different century. I kept her secret. But secrets don't stay buried on a diplomatic station. I noticed a man tailing me. Not local. Too clean, too polished. Claimed he was an envoy from a fringe system. He asked too many questions. About her. About the blackout. About old Terran archives. I lied. Badly. When I returned to the room, she was packing. You're leaving? I've stayed too long. You haven't stayed at all. She looked at me, really looked. Her eyes flickered with galaxies. You're different, she said quietly. Yeah, I shrugged. So are you. The cube pulsed twice. She froze. They've found me. Who? She didn't answer. Just touched the cube, and it unfolded, literally unfolded, into a swirling lattice of data suspended midair. It projected schematics, languages I couldn't read, and coordinates marked with warnings. I recognized one symbol. Human. Very old. I pointed. That's Terran. Pre-Exodus. She nodded. My kind once guided yours. Until we were erased. Erased. By those who now call themselves protectors. The Council. I sat down. You're saying the Galactic Council wiped out your people? She didn't speak. Just closed the cube and said, I'm the last one who remembers. That night, I disabled our room's surveillance. She watched me do it. Why help? She asked. Because if the galaxy erased you, then someone has to remember. Someone stubborn enough not to let it happen again. She didn't smile, but her cloak shimmered in response. Over the next week, we worked together. I used my clearance to mask her identity. Spliced old Earth myth into her digital signature. She taught me basic glyphs from her language. I couldn't speak it, but I could feel its intent. It wasn't just a language, it was resonance. Memory encoded in tone. She touched the cube one night and let me hear voices. Not just hers. Dozens. Hundreds. A chorus of light and sorrow. They weren't just her people's memories. They were warnings. A message left for humanity. The final one said only, beware the ones who speak peace while building walls of silence. I knew then the council wasn't what it claimed. She was no longer my roommate. She was my responsibility. When the first council agent appeared at our door, I was ready. He asked for her by designation. I said, wrong room. He insisted. She stepped out. Cloak gone. Light pouring off her skin like liquid starlight. After the suspension, I expected things to quiet down. Instead, everything escalated. Station patrols increased. Encrypted council broadcasts interrupted public frequencies. Officers began pulling residents aside at random. No official explanation. No subtlety. People whispered about a fugitive species on board. They didn't know it was her. Yet. I upgraded our locks, redirected our heat signatures, rerouted the biometric registry. I buried her name beneath layers of outdated code fragments and flagged our quarters as active quarantine. Nobody questioned it. Fear and bureaucracy made a reliable shield. She watched everything I did with calm precision. Said nothing, but her eyes burned with something older than gratitude. We stopped pretending she was just my roommate. Now, she was the last of her kind, and I was the only human who knew. We started training. Not with weapons. With resonance. She taught me how her species read energy the way humans read emotion. How sound and vibration told truths we couldn't see. Her people had once been spread across 10 galaxies. Advisors, architects, peacebinders. Until they weren't. They called themselves Ilari. The council called them forbidden. Their fall wasn't a war. It was silence. Their records erased. Their monuments dismantled. Their survivors labeled anomalies and exterminated. Only a few memory cores survived. Her cube wasn't just storage, it was a fragment of the Ilari soul. When she activated it fully, the air changed. Reality shimmered. Data streamed not in words, but in feelings. Regret. Rage. Warnings spoken in light. The cube responded to her touch, but it reacted to me differently. Once, when I reached for it, the lights pulsed in sync with my heartbeat. She stared at me for a long time and said, "You were meant to see us again." The council envoy returned with 2 more agents. They scanned the room while I pretended to sleep. She hid in the ceiling crawlspace, wrapped in shadow. My heart thudded louder than any alarm. They left without finding her, but I knew the clock had started ticking. I asked her why she didn't run. She said, "Because running is how they win." We forged a new plan. I would slip a copy of the cube's memory fragments into the main station archive, deep enough that someone, someday, would find it. Even if they got us, the truth wouldn't die. Getting access wasn't hard. I still had my old security clearance. What was hard was staying ahead of the system's built-in AI filters. The council had seeded surveillance into every line of code. They weren't just watching, they were waiting. She gave me encrypted glyphs to mask the data. Living code. It adapted as I typed. Once uploaded, it fragmented itself and disguised the memory as historical anomalies. Lost wars, dead planets, unexplained phenomena. Anyone with enough curiosity would stumble on it. And then wonder. That same night, she collapsed. The cube pulsed erratically. Her body dimmed, her form flickering between light and matter. I caught her before she hit the floor. Her voice was static. The memories, they're unraveling me. The core wasn't just a tool. It was a burden. Her people had poured their essence into it, and now it was consuming her. I begged her to stop. She refused. This is what I am. So I carried her to the medical wing myself, lied about a radiation reaction, and stayed by her side while the machines tried to make sense of her biology. They failed. Her vitals were unreadable. But she stabilized when I held her hand. She said, "Your presence anchors me." I said, "Good. Because I'm not leaving." A day later, the first wave hit. An encrypted transmission burst across the emergency channel. Council operatives declared an active threat to galactic unity was hidden on the station. Descriptions were vague, but I saw the shape in the outline. Her glow. Her silhouette. The cloak. They didn't name her, but they didn't have to. She saw the feed and whispered, "It begins again." I asked her what the council feared so much. Her answer was simple. Proof. Proof they weren't gods. Proof they lied. Proof that humans weren't just another species to contain, but a variable they could no longer predict. She said her kind had once walked among early humans, not as rulers but as mirrors. They showed us potential, helped us survive our first interstellar leap. But we weren't content with guidance. We learned. We adapted. And we became dangerous. The Ilari had wanted to protect us. The Council wanted to own us. And when they couldn't, they destroyed everything that reminded the galaxy what humans once were, and could still become. They thought the Ilari were wiped out. They were wrong. She handed me a shard from the cube. Said, "If they take me, run with this. It remembers." We didn't wait for them to come. We went to the archives. The central AI rejected us at first. Claimed our clearance was invalid. I whispered a phrase from the cube, 4 syllables that weren't words but tones. The archive opened like it recognized her blood. Inside, I uploaded the shard. It pulsed once, vanished into the system, and left behind a cascade of glowing glyphs on every display. Warnings. Messages. names. Histories rewritten, now revealed. Alarms sounded instantly. The council arrived with weapons. She stood in front of me. Her cloak fell. She was starlight forged into form. Eyes that held nebulae. Skin woven from ancient radiance. She didn't flinch as they surrounded us. She didn't beg. They ordered her to surrender. She said nothing. Then they turned to me. "You are harboring a hostile artifact," I said. "She's not hostile. Just inconvenient." They aimed at me. That was their mistake. Before the shot fired, she moved. It wasn't speed. It was displacement. One moment she stood beside me. The next, she was between the guards and their weapons, her hands raised. Energy exploded from her chest like a detonation of beauty and force. Not heat. Not destruction. But pressure. Like gravity shifted. They staggered. Weapons shorted. Lights burst. She collapsed. I caught her again. She was dimmer. Paler. Her glow fading. "They won't stop," she whispered. "But now they'll know." I carried her out. The council couldn't spin what happened. Too many saw the light. Too many felt the change. The next days were chaos. Protests. Demands. Data leaks. Memory fragments wormed through the station systems, sending bursts of Alari history to random terminals. The truth was out. They tried to pin the breach on me. Didn't work. Too many alien students backed me. Some saw what she did. Others saw enough to question. I was suspended permanently. Evicted from the station. A formal reassignment to Earth. But by then, I had the shard. And I had her trust. She recovered slowly. Couldn't stay on Amaretha. We left together on a merchant freighter, no destination, just stars. Along the way, she told me more. There were others. Not many. Scattered fragments of Alari essence, buried in places the council couldn't reach. Some in black holes. Some in nebulae. Some encoded into planetary crust. Waiting for resonance. Waiting for memory. She asked if I'd help her find them. I didn't hesitate. The galaxy saw a fugitive. I saw the future. And it glowed. They called her a myth. But I called her my friend. And that was enough. The freighter was slow, outdated, and barely fit for interstellar jumps, but it didn't ask questions. That made it better than any diplomatic station or council cruiser. We drifted beyond regulated space, following signals too old to trace. She taught me how to listen, not with ears but with presence. The shard she gave me hummed when we were near Ilari Remnant. The first time we felt it was in a dust belt orbiting a dead star, a place marked forbidden by every council map. Inside the asteroid was a chamber sealed in non-standard alloys, grown rather than built. She activated it by standing still. The walls shifted, accepting her. Lights pulsed. The air tasted like memory. A voice, hers but not, echoed. The last message of a dying ancestor. Instructions for awakening. A pattern of coordinates. She downloaded it all into the cube. That night, she didn't speak for hours. Finally, she admitted the cost. Each time she interfaced with a relic, it took more of her. She wasn't designed to survive reconnection. The council hadn't just wiped out her people, they corrupted their memory cores with entropy. Each one she touched risked unraveling her. I told her to stop. She said she didn't come this far to turn back. We followed the trail to a planet consumed by clouds, orbiting a rogue star. No name, no records. Underground, buried under millennia of rock, we found another core. This one reacted not to her, but to me. When I stepped close, it vibrated. Projected light. A map formed. Ancient. It showed stars long gone supernova. But at the center was Earth. Labeled not as origin, but as sanctuary. She stared at it in silence. Her people hadn't just helped humans. They'd hidden their last truths in them. She said, "You weren't just guided. You were trusted." The council knew. That's why they wanted her erased. Not for what she was, but for what she'd reveal about us. By the time we reached the third relic, they were waiting. 2 cruisers. No insignia. No transmissions. Just weapons charged and locked. We ran. The freighter couldn't outrun them, but it didn't have to. It only needed to stall while she did something impossible. She merged with the cube. Her body vanished, turned to light, then fragmented into strands that wrapped around the ship's systems. Engines surged. Coordinates changed without input. We jumped, through a corridor not mapped in any NAV chart. When we reappeared, we were in orbit above a derelict council ship, centuries old. No crew. No power. Inside, in its locked core, was a final memory node. She reformed slowly, exhausted. That jump had nearly torn her apart. The node confirmed everything. The Council's purge was preemptive. The Ilari had warned them. Humanity was growing too fast, learning too much, adapting too unpredictably. The Ilari refused to help suppress them. That refusal was labeled rebellion. The extermination began hours later. What remained of the Ilari sacrificed themselves, encoding knowledge in stars, stones, and genomes. The last message wasn't a warning. It was a challenge. Let the humans rise. And let the galaxy be reminded what it means to burn. We transmitted the node to every frequency possible. The signal was intercepted. Within hours, a bounty was placed on us. No trial. No name. Just dead or detained. The galaxy reacted in waves. Some species already distrusted the Council. The evidence ignited riot. On Zalvan, a Council outpost was seized by protesters. On Vorta Prime, 5 governors defected. On Earth, human officials played it politically, but underground networks swarmed with decoded Ilari text. My face appeared on walls. Not as a fugitive, but as a messenger. They tried assassinating us. A drone strike in the Talvar rings missed only because her energy pulsed before the blast. She took the hit and collapsed for hours. I carried her through the rubble, her glow dimmer than ever. We went dark. Drifted among the edge worlds. Refugees, smugglers, exiles, all had heard whispers. They didn't all believe, but they listened. Some had fragments, pieces of old code, shards of Ilari tech. We gathered them. Bit by bit, she wove them together. A network, a pulse, a new resonance. Not just Ilari. Something hybrid. Human memory and alien light. The Council retaliated. Declared martial law on 12 sectors. Outlawed human Ilari contact. But it was too late. The signal had spread. What was myth now had data. Footage. Testimony. I sent a direct message to the Council. We're not hiding anymore. Their reply was a blockade over Earth. For the first time since joining the Council, humanity found itself isolated. Borders closed. Fleets on standby. The Council expected fear. Compliance. They didn't understand what humans were like under pressure. Earth didn't beg. It broadcasted. A speech from an unnamed soldier played across neutral space. If remembering truth is a crime, then build your prisons high. But know this, walls fall. And humans climb. Within 2 cycles, 43 outer worlds rose in protest. She wasn't just a relic anymore. She was a symbol. We returned to the station where it all began. Amaritha. Security recognized us instantly. We didn't run. She stepped forward, her skin glowing bright enough to shut down sensors. The cube floated beside her, orbiting slowly. I walked behind her, not as protector, but witness. They detained us, dragged us to a closed tribunal chamber. 3 high-ranking council officials presided. They demanded our confession, called us conspirators, said we'd endangered unity. She said one word. No. The cube unfolded, projecting the entire Ilari archive into the chamber. Dozens of officials screamed. Data tore through their systems. Every lie, every deletion, every purge order. She stared at them and said, "This is not vengeance. This is memory." The chamber exploded in light. When it cleared, we were gone. Extracted by a coalition of rebel species. We didn't hide anymore. We moved openly. Released every file. Shared every fragment. Taught every curious mind how to read Ilari glyph. She didn't just recover. She evolved. Her form became stable, stronger. Her light no longer flickered. It pulsed in rhythm with the new signal we created, Ilari and human resonance woven together. They said she was a ghost, then a goddess. She rejected both. She called herself Kinari, meaning remains of the sky. The council fell in phases. One by one, their control centers failed. Species long suppressed claimed their freedom. By the time Earth reconnected to galactic travel, the stars looked different. Not because they changed, because we could finally see who'd been hiding behind them. Years passed. Some say I vanished. Not true. I'm still here, writing, telling the story. Because somewhere out there, someone else thinks their roommate is just shy. And one day, they'll see her for what she truly is. And everything will change. Again.